The seduction Saira Seema. Seeing his helplessness, a meaningful smile appeared on his lips of Liba. The light of the full moon peeking out from the horizon as far as the eye can see above was piercing the darkness in the car, making Liba even more fascinating. It was the consequence of the moonlight of this full moon that his senses were beginning to fade. How many moments passed when, seeing the fluctuations in Liba's existence, Ryan barely turned his eyes and focused his attention back on the road. Now Liba got up from her seat and sat on the armrest between the two seats so that both her legs were resting on the front dashboard. She rested her head on Ryan's shoulder in such a way that her hair spread from Ryan's shoulder to his chest. It was becoming increasingly difficult for Ryan to concentrate on driving. He was being held as if in a spell he did not even know when her hand on the gear began to dance on the milky legs peeking out from her netted sari. He was completely under her delusion. Sometimes Liba was resting in his lap and playing with the buttons of his shirt. Sometimes she would lie back in the same position and start rubbing her waxy fingers on his hair and chest. She then bit his ear with her rosy lips. Ryan was completely in her control at that time, and he could not resist. This game continued for some time, and the car stopped at Cap Moons, located in the south of Karachi. As much as the beach was busy during the day, it was as quiet at night. Even at that time, not only the silence rule here, but there was no artificial light. Only the milky moonlight of the moon was tearing this darkness. A strange sound was spreading in the air together with the noisy waves of the sea. Tonight, the moonlight on the forehead of the sky was not only creating a flood in the waves of the sea, but it had also created turmoil in the emotions of the beings running back and forth from the car. As soon as the car stopped, Liba came out babbling and started running on the sand of the beach. Then Ryan also left the door of the car open and ran behind her. The waves hitting the deserted shore and the silent trees, the sand slipping under their feet, the mysteriousness of the environment, and the moon smiling meaningfully in the sky. Who else was there to disturb their cackles? Liba would sometimes come into his arms, then the next moment she would slip out of his hands like a rush of wind. While running, the pleat of her sari started traveling on the sand. From this, the appealing features of her slender figure were becoming clearer, as a result enhancing Rayon's agitation. He now wanted to fetch Liba in his besiege. "I am gonna love you. Just a little more, baby." She spread her arms and called him towards her with the gestures of her hands and started humming in her sweet tones. The charm of her voice and the squealing of her anklets tied to her feet were making Rayan completely helpless. And that's why she wanted him not to be aware of anything. He had completely forgotten to inform Liba about his marriage. All he remembered was the magical appearance of Liba and the pleasure sought from the seducing figure of her fascinating body. This time, he moved towards her in a rampant state of complete helplessness, and the next moment she was in his tight grip. Liba also decided to end this game now that the night was more than half gone. After some time, the moon starts to fade to lose her strength. Ryan held her semi-naked body in his arms and captured her lips. Liba was supporting him in all this. The vibration in the air sometime before was now reduced to complete silence due to the locking of their lips. Then suddenly, there was a horrible increase in the mysteriousness of the environment. The waves of the sea were now hitting the shore. A few moments later, after quenching his thirst, Ryan moved backward. Now he was untying the top button of his shirt. Liba looked at him with loving and lustful eyes. Her full lips decorated with red color were half opened in this scene. Keeping Ryan's face in her eyes, he licked her lips with her tongue and then again bolted his lips. This time, the duration of this seal was even longer than earlier. There was a surge of emotions in both of their bodies. Their hands were wandering around each other back. After a long moment, they parted from each other and started to undress. During this action, Liba's eyes got fixed on the black thread hanging around Ryan's neck. It was the thread of the same talisman that had been the biggest obstacle to their reunion until now and tonight. Before coming to Ryan, she had done a special act with Roy, under the influence of which, if Ryan himself comes to her, she could have separated this amulet from his existence. When he freed his upper body from the vest after the shirt, that fetish was clear. Liba would have been crushed if she directly hit this amulet, so she came on Rayan's back. Wrapping her arms around his tummy, she started moving her hands slowly towards his chest. This act of hers made a rush in the feelings of both of them. Rayan would have been mad at her action. He had thrown her on the ground in one fell swoop. He was now leaning on her in such a way that the amulet hanging around her neck started swinging back and forth. There was fear in Liba's eyes that if this amulet touched her even a little, it would be difficult for her to escape. Even if she survived, all her magical powers would be lost. He started to slide slowly to crawl back onto the sand, but Rayan ambushed her attempt. It was almost like he would have crossed the borderline of all their limits, but the emotions prevailed over the thoughts of Liba, and she put both her hands around Rayan's neck and wanted to break the black thread by her hands. She had just touched it when the sound of some beads spread in the air and disappeared. It was the same sound that Jia heard that day at the shrine when the bamboo that Miller held in his hand hit the ground. It was a moment's game, and the spell encircling Rayan was fragmented. He immediately regained consciousness, jerked the hand of Liba around his neck sharply, and the next moment, he grabbed this amulet in his fist like a precious object. As soon as he realized the nakedness of Liba and his condition, he quickly got up and ran backward. Liba also got up and ran after him. Her grunts started echoing in the air. To be continued. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.